Guys, what's going on? John here, back again for another Magic the Gathering video. I want to preface today's video by saying I know it has been a very long time since I posted. 2021, in fact, was the last time I posted a video, and I'm trying to get back to posting videos, giving you all Magic content. I'm changing up the content a little bit, as you can tell by the channel rebrand. We're going to be focusing on specs as well as deck techs in terms of Magic the Gathering finance, as well as some Commander deck techs, maybe some gameplay along the line in the future. We will see. It very much depends on the amount of support I get. But since it's been so long, I would seriously appreciate any support that I get on this video. Now, without further ado, let's get into today's video. We will be looking at what to buy and what not to buy from the Murders at Karlov Manor set on release week, which of course is this week as of the recording and the posting of this video. Prices may be a little out of date in terms of when I actually post the video, but when the script was created, these were the exact prices of these cards. So let's get into the video. So first we've got our cards to buy. Our cards to buy, we're going to start with Reenact the Crime. For 1 and 3 blue, Reenact the Crime is an instant that says exile target non-land card in a graveyard that was put there from anywhere this turn. Copy it. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost, and it comes in at $2.87. Now, I'm a big fan of this card. I think that $2.87 is a significant undervaluation of this card. I think the closest comparable card is C Double from March of the Machine. However, I think C Double is significantly worse in terms of a spec for this set, because C Double is an effect that, although arguably the strongest one ever printed, there are other versions of that effect. Reenact the Crime is not an effect we see in blue, and that is really, really big. This card is really awesome for Standard, Pioneer, Modern, even Commander. I mean, the value you can get in a control deck, in a Reanimator deck, in any form of mid-range deck, this card fits every sort of deck. I mean, imagine the scenario where you counter a spell and then reenact the crime for just a complete blowout. You're exiling their card and you're getting it. Or you can have another scenario where you mill a huge haymaker. You mill a Shieldred, you mill an Elish Norn, you mill an Atraxa, and then 4 mana instant speed in blue, you just get it back. This card is really good, and $2.87 is an undervaluation. In my opinion, this isn't a card that's gonna have a crazy high spike, but it's a card that will be worth more than $2.87, and especially if you can pick it up for less than this. I don't think this card is ever going to be a bulk card, barring multiple reprints. I think that in 2 years, you will be able, while this is still in Standard, to flip these cards for a decent profit. Second one I have is Urgent Necropsy. Now this card, to me, is crazily undervalued. I know it takes a lot of setup. You have to collect evidence, and collecting evidence is not the easiest thing for every deck. But it's in Golgari colors, and Golgari colors are the best 2 colors for filling your graveyard. It's also instant speed, and you can destroy up to 4 permanents. This value is incredible, and it reminds me of the card Decimate, which, by the way, was an expensive card before it was reprinted into the ground. But Decimate is significantly worse. I mean, far, far worse. It can also target 4 things, but as you can see in the rules text, you can't cast it unless you have legal choices for all its targets, and if one of those choices is removed, then the entire spell fizzles. It's also a sorcery. Urgent Necropsy is far and away better. I don't think it has a home in every format. It's definitely got a home in Commander. This card seems awesome for any Golgari plus X graveyard build. This card even seems good in just your average build that has these colors because you're naturally going to get cards into your graveyard. I feel honestly that Urgent Necropsy is so undervalued. It's nearing bulk, and considering it's a mythic, it has a lower print run than many rares in the set. I think this card is being seriously undervalued, and you can get some serious money out of Urgent Necropsy if you buy some now. Buy it while it's low because it's a playable card and it will be worth more money. We also have the classic Assassin's Trophy. This card was $20 last time it was in Standard. This is its second reprint. It was also reprinted in Double Masters 2022. However, $2.26 for the most ubiquitously playable Golgari removal spell ever printed at rare is a massive undervaluation. In fact, as of the recording of this video, I know that it has dropped closer to $2 itself, which is insane for me. I mean, this is so playable. Commander, even modern and Jund builds. This is going to be a standard all-star. Any Golgari deck in standard, instant Assassin's Trophy. It's just far and away the best removal spell you will have, and it's not even close. This card is incredibly strong, and $2, pick up at least a playset just to play them, but it's going to be worth far more in the future, especially considering that now standard players will be looking for this card. It's going to be worth some serious money. We also have Connecting the Dots. Now, I will say, this is a more commander-focused spec. I do not believe this card will do anything outside of the commander format. However, inside the commander format, I think this will be a slow burn card. Barring reprint, this card is going to see some significant commander play in more casual builds, and it will slowly creep up in price. You can get them for under $1, so truly bulk right now. Whenever a creature you control attacks, exile the top card of your library face down. Face down obviously sucks. But, it's not the worst thing. And then you can pay 2, discard your hand, sacrifice it, and put all cards exiled with Connecting the Dots into their owner's hands. I mean, that's pretty awesome. You run out of cards. I mean, you're in red. Most of your draw is impulse draw anyway. A deck like Faldorn or Prosper or Obnixilis, those decks are going to love Connecting the Dots because you're going to get so much value out of it. You don't need your hand. You really don't need it. Most of the time when I play my Obnixilis deck, my hand gets filled up with lands. I just end up with a bunch of lands in hand because I can't play extra lands, and I'm getting so much value off of cards I'm flipping, I'm just playing those. And there's no non-lands left in my hand because all the cards I'm drawing are impulse draw. So Connecting the Dots seems really awesome. I think it'll be closer to a $2-3 rare in the future, given a little bit of time, barring any major reprint. We also have Analyze the Pollen. It's 1 green for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you may collect Evidence 8. Search your library for a basic land. If evidence was collected, instead search your library for a creature or land. You reveal it, put it in your hand, and then shuffle. This card is pretty good. Traverse the Ulvenwald was a $7 card during its standard. Now, print runs were much lower at that time, so I don't think it'll be a $7 card. But this card is really, really nice. This card allows you to find a basic land early, fix your mana, and then, if you're in a graveyard theme or just a mid-range theme in general, you can collect Evidence 8, which shouldn't be too hard, and then tutor a creature or any land. That's a really nice effect for 1 mana, and it's super flexible. It really reminds me of Traverse the Ulvenwald. It is essentially a carbon copy of Traverse the Ulvenwald, with using the collect evidence mechanic rather than the delirium mechanic, and I think it'll see just about as much play. This will be really awesome in standard. This will be great in commander, more budget, more focused builds around the graveyard. This is a great tutor for people who aren't going to splurge on demonic tutor, etc. This card is really nice. I think it'll be worth a little bit of money. Next we have Fugitive Codebreaker for 1 and a red. It's a goblin rogue with prowess, haste, and disguise 5 and a red, which is reduced by 1 for each instant and sorcery in your graveyard. And when it's turned face up, you discard your hand and then draw 3 cards. It's also a 2/1. This card, this card is awesome. This is not a commander card, in fact. This is the opposite of a commander card, although it will see some play in disguise and face down creature focused builds. This card is so strong. I mean, you think about your standard aggro builds, you think about your modern burn. First of all, that disguise cost is going to become so cheap. I mean, so cheap. Like, instantly. You're going to be disguising it for 1. But you also can play it as a 2/1 prowess haste for 2 mana. It's a slightly off-curve Monastery Swiftspear, and I really like that. In fact, I think that's its closest comparison for one side. For the other side, being the disguise half of the card, I think it's comparable to Bedlam Reveler, but I also believe that this card is better than Bedlam Reveler. Bedlam Reveler didn't have that first mode, and so early game it was not an effect you could play in general. Late game Bedlam Reveler during standard was an awesome play and saw a ton of play. Fugitive Codebreaker is so flexible for burn and for red deck wins because it has those 2 modes, and it can even see play in mid-range because of those 2 modes, because late game, you can just use the second mode. Early game, you can pressure opponents that are playing a control style. This card is going to be really, really strong in Standard, Pioneer, and Modern, and I think it'll be worth significantly more than $1. This card is a really awesome card. Do not sleep on Fugitive Codebreaker. We also have Ansrag's Rampage for 3 and 2 red. It's a sorcery that says destroy all artifacts you don't control. Then exile the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of artifacts that were put into graveyards from the battlefield this turn. You may put a creature card exiled this way onto the battlefield. It gains haste. Return it to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. This is not a 98-cent card. This card is so good. This card is Vandal Blast at its base state. Now, it doesn't have the flexibility of Vandal Blast. It does not have the flexibility of Vandal Blast, but it has that added mode. Vandal Blast is still overloaded 95% of the time. And having that added mode that, oh yeah, you get a creature for a turn that you can hit in with and then brings it to your hand. It's better than tacking draw a card onto Ansrag's Rampage. You select the card you draw, and you get to hit someone with that creature as well, get an enter the battlefield effect if it's got one. This card is so good. Now this is a commander only card. This is a commander only card. It may seem some sideboard play, but I highly doubt it. This is not a 98-cent card. Vandal Blast is not bulk, and it's been reprinted 6 times, including late last year. This card is really, really awesome, and I think Ansrag's Rampage is definitely worth a pickup, especially if you're a commander player. Finally, we have War Leader's Call. For 1, a red and a white, it's an enchantment that says creatures you control get +1/+1. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent, and it comes in at $3.28. So this card reminds me of Impact Tremors and Glorious Anthem stapled together. Those cards are each 2 mana. This card is 3 mana. You're saving a mana, you're saving a card. This card is really awesome. Any deck that wants Impact Tremors immediately wants War Leader's Call, and Impact Tremors was a $5 common before its reprint. War Leader's Call is an incredibly strong card. Dealing 1 damage to each opponent whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it is an auto-include in tokens decks in the Commander format. This will do work in Standard. The Anthem is added bonus. You're paying 1 extra mana on an Impact Tremors for an Anthem, which I'll take any day. It is absolutely worth the extra mana. This card is so good, and it will be more than $3.28. Now I have got some cards that I don't think you should buy. First, we've got Delney Streetwise Lookout. For 2 and a white, he's a legendary creature, human scout. Creatures you control with power 2 or less can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. If an ability of a creature you control with power 2 or less triggers, that ability triggers an additional time, and it is a 2/2. This card is $24.24, and to me, that is shockingly overpriced. There is no reason that Delney should be this expensive, but I know the reason why it is, and it's because people slept on Roaming Throne from the Lost Caverns of Ixalan. People did not believe that Roaming Throne was going to be an impactful card, and it was $10 at release, and now it's $25. People don't want to miss the hype train on Delney. People are overcorrecting. Delney is nowhere near as strong as Roaming Throne. They are entirely incomparable. Delney will still be worth a little bit of money, but do not buy Delney now. If you have copies, sell now, buy later. This card will not be $25. This card will not be $20. I doubt this card will even be $15. This card has homes, but it is much, much more of a niche card than Roaming Throne. This card is not going to see a ton of play in constructed formats, and in Commander it will have very niche homes. It will still be worth some money, but nowhere near $25. Do not buy Delney. We also have Vin Ripper. For 3 and 3 black, it's a creature vampire assassin, 6/5 with flying and ward, sacrifice a creature. Whenever a creature dies, target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life, and it is $8.97. It's just not going to see play. That's the honest truth of it. This card is not strong enough to see play anywhere. This card is not strong enough for Modern and not strong enough for Pioneer. Clearly, you can tell by looking at it. So the only homes are Commander and Standard. In terms of Commander, paying 6 for a double Blood Artist is not the rate that you want. Blood Artist is 2 mana. We already have Zulaport Cutthroat, we have Bastion of Remembrance, we have Cruel Celebrant, we have all sorts of different cards that do this effect, especially when you start adding other colors. You don't need Vin Ripper, it's too much mana. And in Standard, black top of the curve is already there. I mean, we have Shieldred the Apocalypse. It's topping the curve of black decks until it rotates. And when it rotates, Massacre Girl Known Killer is going to take that spot, because Massacre Girl is better than Vin Ripper. It's 2 less mana, and it has a more potent effect in Standard. I would rather have Massacre Girl in any of my Standard decks than Vin Ripper. Vin Ripper will be close to a bulk mythic. I do not think it will be bulk, but it will end up close to being bulk. Do not buy Vin Ripper at $9. Do not buy it. Next, we have the Pride of Hulklade, and you may start to notice a theme that a lot of the mythics in this set are overvalued. The Pride of Hulklade is a legendary creature, Crocodile Elk Turtle. It's a 2/15, and it costs 10 and a green. However, it costs X less to cast, where X is the total toughness of creatures you control. It has Defender, and you can pay 2 and 2 blue until end of turn. Target creature you control gets +1/+0. Gains whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw cards equal to its toughness, and can attack as though it didn't have Defender. This card just takes too much setup. There will be some commander builds around it, but most commander builds will just realize that Arcades is far better, and that the Pride of Folklade will end up in the 99 of the Arcades deck. In any constructed format, having to set up with big toughness creatures is a losing strategy. This card is just not good. This is a future bulk mythic. Do not buy it at $6.50. Do not. We also have Arelia's Vindicator. For 2 and 2 white, it's a 4/2 angel with flying, lifelink, ward 2. It has disguise for X, 3, and a white. When it's turned face up, you exile up to X other target creatures from the battlefield and or creature cards from graveyard. When Arelia's Vindicator leaves the battlefield, you return the exiled cards to their owner's hand, and it's $4.06. This card will only see play for the non-disguised version. 4 mana 4/2 flying lifelink ward 2 is a decent rate, I suppose, but not good enough to make standard decks even. And the disguise mode is so overcosted. You have to pay 8 mana total over multiple turns to target one thing. It is 8 mana base level for your first target, and that is way too much. This card is not worth $4.06. This is a bulk mythic, certainly. Do not buy it for anything over $2. Don't. We also have Intrude on the Mind. For 3 and 2 blue, it's an instant that says reveal the top 5 cards of your library and separate them into 2 piles. An opponent chooses one of those piles, put that pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard, create a 0/0 colorless Thopter with flying, then put a +1/+1 counter on it for each card put into your graveyard this way, and it's $3.52. People are comparing this card to Fact or Fiction, and it is uncomparable. First of all, Fact or Fiction is 1 less mana and 1 less pip. The Thopter does not matter for this card. It doesn't matter. And this is much more comparable to Steam Augury, because you're making the piles and the opponent is choosing, whereas with Fact or Fiction, the opponent is making the piles and you are choosing. You are choosing which cards you get in that one. In Steam Augury and Intrude on the Mind, the opponent is choosing which cards you get. So you will always not get the card you want in 99% of scenarios, and that is just not good. Steam Augury was also a hyped card, and it was not good. Back in Theros, everybody thought it was going to be the new Fact or Fiction. The card is not strong. The card is bulk. Intrude on the Mind will also be a bulk mythic. That concludes all that I have for today's video. Just a quick disclaimer at the end. This video should not be considered financial advice. This is all from my perspective, and you should buy and sell these cards based on the cards that you want to play. With that said, I would appreciate it so much if you guys would give this video a like, subscribe to my channel and ring the notification bell, and recommend this channel to all of your friends. I'm trying to get this channel restarted and get it fully off the ground, and I would seriously appreciate any support. Thank you guys for watching.